Hello everyone, and welcome back to Automobilista 2. Today, we're going to be talking about yet another patch. The devs seem to be faster than I am when it comes to making updates, and so I guess we're going to be talking about that. Now, it's only a minor update, so we're not going to be only focusing on that. The second thing that I want to do is speak a little bit about the comparison between this game and Project Cars 2. Because this game uses the same engine, there's a lot of people comparing the two, especially in terms of in terms of driving models. And I think it's an interesting comparison, but I'm not entirely sure I agree with a lot of what has been spoken about. So, we're here at Kansai GP, which is basically Suzuka in the Formula V12. We've got 120% AI this time. There's 15 of them. We're starting at the back. And the first thing that you're going to notice is just how terrifying they still are on lap 1. And to be honest, I think this track might be one of the worst. Interlagos, they're really not too bad, but that track's quite wide. Suzuka is quite narrow, and as a result, the AI get very confused very easily. And, okay, so we've murdered one already. I apologise for that game. I'm going to try not to punt the AI off the track, but what I have done is I've turned off damage, and I think that you'll see that with the amount of brake checking that goes on throughout this race, you may understand why I've done that. The AI like to randomly slow down on certain corners for no reason. It gets better throughout the race, basically as they spread out. I didn't want to overtake there, and I've hit him again. You see the issue already. And I'm not the greatest driver in the world, but I promise this is me being as careful as I possibly can be, while also, racing and trying to keep up. Not hitting the AI at the moment is kind of impossible. Now, the latest patch does supposedly change them a bit. They should be quicker. They should be more consistent over the lap in terms of pacing the high speed versus the low speed. But to be honest, can I see a difference? Not really. So yeah, really at the moment the AI are still in dire need of some updates. As I mentioned before, when they spread out a bit, and when you get to race them just you against the AI rather than in a pack, they're great fun to race against. I actually really enjoy racing against them as I try and take 7th that doesn't exist. But I wouldn't say that at the moment they are anywhere near a finished state. Doing a medium-sized grid even like this is kind of difficult. So, what other changes are in this patch? Well, they've changed the force feedback slightly. Can't really notice much of a difference in most of the cars. Some of them, there's maybe a little bit more detail. I'm not gonna lie. I was driving this game quite a lot yesterday, so I've hit him again. I was driving this game quite a lot yesterday, so I feel like I've got a good sort of A/B test. That was another unintended overtake, but we're going to take it, whatever. I'm also going to move the brake bias back a little bit. Yeah, and A/B testing it like that, I can't tell much of a difference in force feedback. Some of the cars have been improved, so they mentioned the Formula V10. That bouncing issue that we saw last week. Oh my! That was an accident. I must say I do quite enjoy some of the spectacular accidents that AI get into in this game. I mean, as silly as they sometimes are and as annoying as they are to race against, you do get into some situations which are just hilarious. And having to dodge the odd accident is actually quite enjoyable. As we lock up the front wheels into there. The AI are pretty quick out that last chicane, by the way. You'll see throughout the course of this race that they do not mess around when they're coming out that last chicane. Some of the high-speed stuff, they're a little bit overly tentative. The S's, they're quite slow. But yeah, some of the slower speed stuff, they're actually got some serious pace, especially in terms of just getting on the throttle early. That might just be me being bad though, I'm not sure. So yeah, the Formula V10, they fixed that bouncing issue. The V8 supercar feels a little bit more drivable, or at least not just on the default setup, it does. Yeah, some minor changes like that. The big thing that they did mention was the AI, but as I said, I'm not sure it's that much of an improvement. Maybe it is on some of the tracks, but at least here, it's the same. We're going for another one of those late dives. That is why they call me Kamui Kobai Crashy. Is that the 2012 Japanese Grand Prix that he was doing that? That was very entertaining to watch. It was him overtaking at that hairpin. Oh my god, right. He's obviously scared of Spoon. It's a scary corner, to be fair. I'd be scared too if I was him. Now, the main thing that I want to talk about in this video was the comparison between, as we're going up the inside of 130R, we made it stick. Yeah, it was the comparison between AMS2 and Project Cars 2. Because I think a lot of people have been a bit unfair on this game. I've driven a lot of Project Cars 2, probably a couple of 100 hours of that game, and I've now played a few dozen hours of AMS2, nowhere near as much obviously, and also we're bearing in mind that this game is constantly changing, whereas Project Cars 2, fairly static from the start. In terms of Project Cars 2 content, my favourite was probably the GT5 Ginetta. That was the one that we drove the most, but I did really enjoy driving the GT3 cars and some of the sort of classic GT cars, like the Group C's and things like that. They were great fun to race against the AI and maybe put some weather on and have a terrible time. That game's great. Don't get me wrong, even with what I'm about to say, I really do think Project Cars 2 is a great game. However, it's not the same as Automobilista 2. It's not the same kind of game, and as a result, it doesn't feel the same to drive, even slightly. Is the presentation similar? Obviously. They run in the same engine as... Oh, the AI really don't like the second part of Spoon, do they? You have to go really slowly when you're behind them. Hopefully I can get past this guy and maybe we can get a clean lap one time this race. Yeah, is the presentation the same? Yes, the menus are pretty identical. Reza haven't bothered remodeling them. The graphics are obviously very similar, just visually. The game looks the same. But when you're driving it, I mean, it's night and day. It really is. This game feels so much more predictable, so much more intuitive. You know, the force feedback. It actually feels like the steering wheel that you're holding is in some way vaguely connected to the road. You know, you actually. Oh, okay. Yeah. AI. Oh my, right, he's really slow now, we're going to have to get past him. By the way, this is on 120% difficulty. So, as I mentioned before, when Reza said that supposedly they've improved the AI, they've also supposedly made them quicker. I don't think they have. I'm not this fast, I shouldn't be this fast against the AI and then maximum setting. Especially as I've got damage switched off, so there's no way that he should be this slow. Yeah, one thing that Project Cars 2 always suffered with was inconsistency between cars. In that game, you could drive one car out. We're going to nip it up the inside here because I'm sick of following him through Spoon. As we almost bin it on the exit as a result, we managed to make it stick there, that's okay. I think he's far enough away that he's not going to try and slip it up the inside through 130R, which is nice. Yeah, it was very inconsistent between the different cars, so you'd drive one car and it would feel great, and it would be just really fun to drive, and then you'd drive, you know, maybe even another car in the same class, and the force feedback would feel different. I know there was a lot of custom files that you could download from members of the community that had tried to improve that game, and they did make quite a big difference actually. There was one that released probably quite far into the game's life cycle. I can't remember the name of it for the life of me, but it's like a version 2 of one of the force feedback files, and it really did make a big difference to how that game felt. And it was an improvement, but because it was so inconsistent between cars still, you know, there's nothing that the force feedback files could do for changing from one car to another. And I think what that stemmed from was less the implementation of the force feedback or the engine itself, but just the way that the physics of the cars were implemented. You know, if you've made a tyre model that only reacts to certain things in certain ways, there's no way of communicating all the proper information to the driver, is there? So, you know, as a result, Project Cars 2 was always kind of flawed, and I think it all stemmed from that tyre model. Whereas AMS2, I don't know, it feels so much more alive. As we almost die through 130R. Going up the inside of the AI through there is... I mean, who needs skydiving or bungee jumping? If you want to nearly kill yourself, just do that. So, yeah, it was that inconsistency that I didn't like about Project Cars 2, and AMS2 has really, A, brought the level of all the cars up, but B, it's also brought them closer together. You know, you never drive one car and think, wow, that felt amazing, going to another one and it feels terrible. You know, none of these cars aren't communicative or feel numb, you know, none of them do things that are unexpected. Now, one thing that I don't want to get confused here is when I'm talking about physics, I'm not talking about the handling of the cars, because obviously there has to be a similarity in terms of handling of the cars, because if you're driving, for example, both games have a modern F1 car, or sorry, a V8 F1 car, they're not modern anymore, are they? So both games have that Formula 1 car from 2012-ish, and obviously they both have to drive fairly similarly, they both have similar amounts of downforce, they both have a similar type and size of tyre, so they're both going to have a similar balance, they're both going to have a similar, you know, way that they respond to bumps and things like that, but it's less, you know, think of it as, you know, not being high-speed oversteer and slow-speed understeer, or not being, you know, the fact that it doesn't like bumps and it clatters over curves, more the way in which it does those, how sudden they are, how aggressive they are, how easy it is to correct them, and how intuitively the force feedback can communicate all of that information to you. Oh my lord. That AstroTurf on the outside of turn 1, deadly. I don't know whether it's like that in real life, but I kind of love how punished you are for going wide in turn 1. There's some versions of Suzuka, at least that I've driven in Assetto Corsa, where there's basically no penalty for going wide at turn 1, and I love that they've put in this game this like deadly AstroTurf there that as soon as you touch it, it'll just send you into the shadow realm. It really does make it a bit more exciting. Same for the bottom of the hill there. Right, let's see what we can do against this AI. So, yeah, just to wrap up my thoughts on this game versus Project Cars 2. Yes, they look similar. They're presented similar. Do they drive the same? No, not at all. That being said, does this drive similarly, or does this drive the same as Automobilista 1? No, because it's not the same game and it's not running on the same engine, and it would be practically impossible for them to move exactly the same physics as we're going to go for it again. We made it stick. Yeah, it would be impossible for them to bring all that over 100%, but have they done a great job of making an enjoyable standalone simulator here? Yeah, definitely. I love racing these classic Formula 1 cars, for example, at some of these circuits. It's great fun. Are there improvements to be made? definitely. Clearly, we're having issues with the AI here. I think they're especially bad here at Suzuka. So, excuse me, Kansai GP. But those sorts of things can get ironed out by 1.0. And also, name me a single simulator that doesn't have issues. iRacing, one of the most popular simulators, I think the tyre model is still, should we just say, lacking in many ways. I think we might even be able to race for the win here. So yeah, basically, I think a lot of people have been quite unfair when comparing this game to Project Cars 2, because really, Razer have done a great job of improving how this engine works and putting their fantastic physics into what is, let's face it, technically quite impressive game engine. We do not want to get involved with that. We don't want to be 3 wide at 130R. So we've had a change of lead here. Shall we see if we can get into first place by the end of this race? We've only got 1 lap to go. We're in second. I'm not entirely sure if we can catch him up. We've got quite a lot of tyre wear, so if you look down in the bottom right hand corner, you're going to see the tyres there. The colour's the temperature, and the amount of colour there, like how filled up the boxes, that's the wear. So you can see we've got quite a lot of front tyre wear, but we're a lot quicker than this AI's. Clearly they've been a lot quicker than this AI. Do you see what I mean about them suddenly being slow for no reason? I've not changed the setup, by the way. This is the default setup. In fact, I've had to reset all my setups because they recommend that you do that every patch, so they're just slow. And this is maximum difficulty. It's not max aggression, but that's because on max aggression they're a little bit terrifying. Usually I would be running with damage. In my last video I was running with damage. I took him out, so we'll wait for him. I don't want to overtake him having barged him out of the way. It's just frustrating following them like this, because suddenly they'll just be slower at the apex or just before the apex than they should be. And then here in the second part of Spoon, you can't hang it around the outside and they just hug the apex. They just park it on the apex and there's nothing you can do. Right, let's try and get him in the slipstream here. Let's go for the win. Put the inside of 130R, why not? We made it stick. Can we just keep it on the black stuff for 2 more corners? I think we can. There we go. That's what we like to see. Last to first in 10 laps. 120% AI. I'm happy with that. I'm very happy with that, as we see the replay camera there jittering around a little bit. A 1:40 was our best. We could have gone quicker than that. I think I've managed to do a 1:38.9 at one point. So, not the quickest that I've ever driven, but regardless, I really enjoyed that. And I'm still really enjoying this game. The new patch, minor improvements, but that's what we're expecting at this stage. 1.0 should be coming out fairly soon, I should imagine. So, yeah, apparently the force feedback, by the way, those minor tweaks to the force feedback, apparently that's now locked in for 1.0. So, that's good to hear, because, to be honest, the force feedback's great, so I don't want them to change it. Anyway, I hope you all enjoyed, and hopefully I'll catch you in another video.